The following podcast is recorded and produced by Emerge, a media creators co-op, in affiliation with the network at bsky.app-radio.com.
Hi, welcome back to another episode of Why We Pod. I'm Rich Meranto, owner and operator of Meranto Media and Emerge, a media creators co-op. And the purpose of this podcast, if you've been watching our series, is to talk to podcasters and find out best practices and all that kind of stuff, why they do it, what have they learned, what's their motivation, all that stuff. And, you know, several of the interviews I've done so far have been with people that I work with on a regular basis, but I really wanted to make sure that I wasn't just talking with podcasters that I actually produce podcasts for. So I reached out to someone that I'd happened to meet and I've done a little bit of work for, and I'm really excited to meet someone that's been podcasting for a while with his friends, and they have a podcast that's done incredibly well, and they're so far ahead of the game in my mind. So I'm very excited to have today's guest, Ryan Sidoti.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming by. I know we were trying to figure out how to do this for a while, but obviously, if you're watching this, you will see that Ryan and your co-hosts, you are into Invincible.
Yes, we do the Invincible Podcast.
Before we get into that specific, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, what you do, because this isn't your real podcasting, isn't your real job. So tell everybody a little bit about what you do.
I am a winemaker. I work at a winery here in Western New York. I've been doing that for at least 15 years now.
Okay.
I do that as well as a part-time gig with a comic book writer out of California. And it's only in my free time that I get to podcast.
Yeah. And that's really most people. I mean, It's funny because obviously we have this business and people come in, and quite often occasionally there's that person that's wants to know how long before they can quit their job and just be a full-time. I'm like, well, I think I'm the wrong guy if that's the thing. So this is really kind of about, but you can still be very successful in terms of what you want to measure as success. So talk a little bit about your podcast, your co-host, because obviously you don't do it by yourself. So tell us a little bit about the Invincible Podcast.
Yep. So it's myself and three of my friends, it's me, Bill, TJ, and Wyatt. Bill and TJ I've known since high school or earlier. And Wyatt, we actually, met through the podcast, and he joined a couple years ago. And actually, the day we're recording this is actually our 9-year anniversary.
Oh, wow,
so
that's great.
we've been doing the podcast now for 9 years. And it started back, I don't know, we started reading the comic book that it's based on back in around 2007. It's written by Robert Kirkman. I always tell the same guy that wrote, Walking Dead. So if you've heard of Walking Dead, massive TV show, he was also writing and creating a superhero comic book around the same time as the Walking Dead comic book.
Right.
And so me, Bill, and TJ were reading this comic, in 2007, 2008. And for years, we would have these really great conversations with each other. We'd get each issue every month, and we just loved talking about it. And around that time, we were really into podcasts, specifically IGN's Podcast Beyond, which is a PlayStation podcast with Greg Miller, who went on to found Kind of Funny, a podcast company and video show company that is incredibly successful. And they've been an inspiration to us, all the way through it. And so it wasn't for years. It wasn't until early 2016, late 2015 that we started talking about, we have these great conversations. We love talking about this thing, but there isn't a podcast about this.
Right.
And so we decided, what if we try and do it? So it really stemmed from, us wanting something to exist and it not being there.
Right.
And so we're like, well, let's just do it ourselves.
Yeah.
We had no really experience in it. We had no expectations apart from, just wanting to have conversations and put it out there for, people like us to enjoy.
And again, from the time period that when you started doing it, obviously predates the show and everything. Like, this was a comic book mainly based, and it still really is. I mean, you still have focused, you still like to have, I feel like it's not that it's not about the animated show, but in many ways, I still think from my understanding, it's still very much about what it's about, like where it started.
Yeah, like we started the podcast, and then it was like I don't know, a year later, maybe less, where they're like, all right, so we're ending the comic. It's done. Thank you. But really, we kept it alive. It was us just talking about the different characters, or us talking about our hopes and dreams for what it could be as a show or a movie or a video game or a board game or whatever. And all we had was the comic book. And we had like the various spin-offs we would talk about. But then we stuck with it. And then the animated show came out, and the first season was this pretty massive hit.
It was a huge hit. And I think it's kind of, so again, you kind of already answered a lot of the questions, and it's that. So in the beginning, it was like there weren't a lot of podcasts at that point. It was really kind of, and even then you could Google things and stuff. But it was still, I mean, even I didn't get into podcasting where I was working at the time. We were still running traditional video. We weren't even streaming a lot yet. Mostly everything was still going to cable where I worked at the time. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I even started looking at, well, we got to get away from this until about 2018 and start getting into streaming and figuring out how to, go live on YouTube and Facebook and all those kinds of things. You guys were like so far ahead in terms of, there were a lot of podcasts, but it was still audio only. Yeah. It wasn't
it's one of those things where like, we were listening to podcasts for like 10 years before finally doing it ourselves. I wish we would have started even sooner, but it's never too late. You just got to do it, Yeah, I mean, the joke is now that everybody's got a podcast, and you joke about that. I mean, sometimes, but not everybody's as successful. I mean, you guys, and I've done a lot of research on this, that like only like 90-something% of podcasts do not make it past 7 episodes. Yeah. And then there's only like 2% that make it beyond 100 episodes. And you guys are well beyond that. Yeah. And obviously there's the longevity that you have. And just the commitment is, if people don't get that, and those are the things that we're going to talk about in a few minutes, just kind of like the podcast itself is grown. And in the beginning, you were like, what were your expectations when you started doing it? Like, did you guys ever have a conversation like, man, we're going to be big like the Beatles, or was it just kind of like, we just want to do it for fun? Is this a reason for us to get together and do something that we're doing anyway? From the very beginning, it was always, if there was 5 people listening, we would still do this.
Right.
Because we were doing it anyways for years.
Right.
So we just wanted to do that. Yeah, maybe Bill thought that we'd be massive celebrities by now. But other than that, like, no, we do it for fun. And that's been a big part of it. And I think a huge factor as to why we are still doing it. And like you said, we'll get into more of that.
I think that's the most important thing, and we're going to get to some of those things, because I think like if you got to have the right reasons, and I produce a bunch of podcasts here, and some of them come and go, and some of them have broken up because of personality conflicts between people, or maybe the person just loses their job, or their schedule changes, or their girlfriend says, why are you spending so much time on that? All those kinds of things. There's so many things that go into it, and if you can have a support, you have a lot of support system. Yeah. So you guys, how often do you guys get together? Like how often do you guys get together?
There were hopes and dreams early on of being like, let's do it more consistent. Let's do a lot. But early on, when we first started, it was 2 a month. We were bi-weekly, every other week, whatever you want to call it.
And how often was the comic book coming out at that point?
So at that point, it was 1 a month. Occasionally there'd be a delay or something like that. But for the most part, in the beginning, 2 episodes a month. 1 episode was all about the new issue. The new issue that just came out, we're going to deep dive into that. And then the other episode would be about, we started a sideshow, if you will, about this comic book, this spin-off comic that's in the Invincible universe, or we're talking about this one character and doing a deep dive on their history. Or we're just going to do a fun thing where we're going to talk all about what our dream video game would be for Invincible.
If they did a video game type of thing. And these are great. And I guess like, so you always, how did you guys come up with those topics? Was it just ideas, or did you have like a group chat, or how did it just come up? It was just like,
because we've been friends for so long and we've been having those conversations for years that they just naturally came to us. And that was what we started with. And then it became, okay, well, the comic book is ending. Let's try and keep doing 2 a month. And then, there would be some droughts where it would be like, all right, well, there's not much going on. We've kind of covered just about everything. Right. We want to keep it alive. We want to keep going because we believe in this, IP, and we know that that something someday will happen.
Right.
And so for a little bit, we did 1 a month. And we're like, all right, let's go down to 1 a month just to keep it going. Here's the latest news. This is what you've missed. We're going to touch base on this. We're going to reread the series with people who've never read it before.
That's cool.
Different ideas, right? And so that is what kept it there, especially when the book ended, because you have these fans that have nothing now.
Yeah.
So we were there as this kind of unofficial, you know.
It's funny. One of the
After
podcasts and channels that I pay a lot of attention to is about The Expanse.
Yeah.
And I've read the books.
Oh, yeah.
And but
I'm
the show's
on, like,
over.
4 now.
The show's over, and it's just I want the show back. I so bad because it's my favorite. I mean, outside of like one of the Star Trek shows that I'm really into, it's my favorite sci-fi property of all time.
Oh yeah.
And I just like, oh God, I want another season. Give me one more. Give me a movie.
Yeah.
And you know, and now I've read the first book like twice. You know, and I'm not a book reader. I'm so to commit to reading those books. And I so it is. There's definitely that. You're like, oh, like I need content. I need more content.
Yeah.
You know. So how much, when you guys are doing an episode, like what's the prep time when you're doing it? And then?
Well, that's where things changed a lot because, as I was saying, we would shift to 1 episode a month when things slowed down. But then suddenly things picked up. You know, an animated series is announced.
Right. How much time was in between that? Like,
oh man, I think between the series ending in, oh man, there was probably about 3 years or so. Maybe between the comic book ending and the animated series starting. So we probably had about 2 years or so of, you know, not much going on.
Yeah.
But we had the announcement of the show. There was actually the announcement of a movie or so. But it was a lot. There was a good amount of time there. But anyways, we would have our normal episodes, which were monthly or so. But then we would also have episodes where we're talking about the animated series, the new episodes that come out. When a new season of Invincible comes out, which season 3 just ended as of this recording.
right.
When a new season comes out, we are recording sometimes twice a week.
Okay.
Because we're trying to gather all of our thoughts. We're building these episodes out to be different things, whether we're doing reactions or we're doing full episode breakdowns, but we still want to do all the other things. But from the beginning, we've had a pretty structured outline of the podcast. We would always talk about any of the latest news, anything that's going on, anything of relevance to Invincible fans out there. We would always cover any letters that people send in, have a little bit of a mailbags type section.
Yep.
We would also have a main topic. We would have, just all of, like those kind of things. And then when it came to the episodes, we would have breakdowns and, you know, going over that way. So
it's easy to find things to talk about.
Yeah, it is.
Especially if you can get everybody on the same page. Like, and that's some of the challenges sometimes that I try to, like, for the podcasters that I produce, I try to, like, well, let's sit down and just start a dry erase. We have a dry erase board, things for the one podcast that I kind of help produce. And we just kind of go through those things and try to find ways to keep it fresh. And then every once in a while, there's that one podcast, that topic that the one guy will say, and everybody's like, boo, like nobody wants to watch that. It's an interesting thing because unlike a lot of the podcasts yours is so unique in my mind because you have this written version as well as this animated version. And it's and just the fact that there are 2 versions of it gives you so much more to talk about.
Yeah, which has been an interesting act to figure out how much of it should we, you know, spoil, if you will, you know, because we've gotten a lot of new listeners that are coming in because they've discovered the show. Right. Because the show has become more popular than the comic at this point, that you're getting a lot of those listeners. But then we want to talk about, they're teeing up this thing that happens many seasons later. Right. It's like, oh, well, we probably shouldn't say that.
Yeah, there's definitely that problem sometimes, like with any type of thing where, you know, you kind of know what's going to happen. Like, so for example, Last of Us season 2 is coming out, and anybody who's played the game kind of know what's going to happen. And I think the producers have really already kind of come on and said, listen, if you've been playing the game, you're probably going to be a little upset because we had to make some changes. How have you guys in general felt about the transition from the comics to the animation?
Oh my God, we are so lucky.
Yep.
We are so lucky. Not only are the creators of the show or of the comic very much involved, like at the highest level in the creation of the show itself, but they're doing such a good job. They're updating things. Robert Kirkman has said many times that this is like his second pass in a way. Like, he is, with knowing the full history and the full knowledge of the story he first wrote, he can go in there and tweak things and update things and modernize things. It's been fantastic.
How are the fans reacting? Because this sometimes happens with podcasts. Like, you guys say things, And, you know, the internet's such a lovely place that people have things that they have to say. Do you find in general that your listeners are pretty supportive in terms of, like, do you feel like you have a good agreement, like on a level of agreement?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. This has actually come up pretty recently too. I think early on, we made a point to, and this comes a lot from our inspiration through Kind of Funny and Greg Miller. We made a point to be overall positive.
Right.
You know what I mean? And optimistic. And there's enough negativity out there. There's enough things that, you know, we don't want to talk about something we don't like.
Yep.
You know, we just want to, you know, be excited about this thing. So we've kind of created a little bit of a community that's more on the positive side.
And I want to talk about that because you literally do have a community of support, which is, I think most people will. I was so excited for you guys to find out some of the things like that you've gone to events and you've met fans.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's that's one of the highlights is getting to go to comic book conventions or wherever and see, you know, listeners and I mean,
who was the first person that was recognized? Do you remember?
Ironically, I almost feel like, I mean, TJ and I have been recognized before.
Actually, the interesting thing today. TJ is actually producing for me today. So he's over there sitting behind the board. So I appreciate TJ. He's pressing buttons. And so if you're wondering why occasionally he's looking at the producer for answers, it's one of his co-hosts.
I think TJ and I were probably recognized first because I think TJ and I went to conventions early on together. But one that sticks out to me is maybe within the last couple of years, a listener went up to Bill and was like, "Aren't you TJ from the Invincible Podcast?"
Got his name wrong.
So he was like half right, but still pretty cool that he got a name and the look, but just got him crossed. But,
that's pretty cool, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I would have been like, that would have been pretty cool. Like,
yes. Oh no, it's crazy. We've had many of those surreal, like, is this our life moments? What's even crazier is like early on, even when we would get, you know, we'd get the subtle reference that. You know, Robert Kirkman or Ryan Ottley or one of the creators actually listened, and it's like, oh, okay, cool, crazy.
And that has become a thing. Like, you've actually met them now, both of them.
Yeah,
you've recorded with them, and they've been guests on the pod, and talk a little bit about that because people probably don't even realize that.
Yeah, they're just fans at the root of it. They are fans of this, and they want to, from the very beginning, like I was saying, like, we wanted this podcast to exist because we want to hear these conversations and have these conversations, and so do they. You know what I mean? And it's so easy talking to them because they love this thing and they love the passion. And back to what we were just talking about with positivity is like, it's just, you know, we're supportive of what they're doing.
Yeah.
You know, it's
It's great because if you can have it, you have a property that everybody seems to be really enjoying, and it's funny because obviously I produce some podcasts for people and I'm on occasionally, and we watch some stuff sometimes, we react to things, and we do not all like it, and it's funny because the reactions mainly we do are usually for people. Sometimes I'm one of the four, sometimes I'm producing, and we have this range of like. Especially with the Star Wars stuff, where like my son is a little bit. He wants everything to be Andor. He wants everything to be like dark, but he also loves Skeleton Crew.
Oh, yeah.
And it was funny because he'll make comments about things when we watch like DC properties. And then they'll people in the comment section will just jump all over him about like, you're just a Snyder guy and he hates Snyder stuff. But it's just so funny. Like we have that group is so funny but the thing that is very important to them is that they are all authentic. Nobody's saying anything out of, oh, we'll get some clicks out of this if we play that. Yeah. And obviously you guys, I think you're doing very well, partially because you guys are genuine.
Yeah. And that's really one of the most important things is keeping it genuine. And we don't go out of our way to highlight things we don't like. There have been things over the last 10 years or 9 years or whatever that we might not have liked, but it's not important. You know what I mean?
Right.
At the end of the day, this is, whether it's the comic or the show, this is a piece of entertainment that is made by artists. And we're not trying to look at this critically and only call out things that we don't like or things that are negative. And you know what? We probably would have twice the following or have twice the number of, you know, likes or views or whatever if we made headlines that said the worst thing or rating from best to worst. But we don't want to do that.
Right.
You know?
That's pretty cool. There's a little bit of some specifics of like how, like, because you were so new with this, you picked a platform. for your audio streaming. And then you just decided to YouTube. How did you decide like some of the other, because obviously you're on, where are you on? Your Spotify, Apple?
Yeah.
You know?
And these days it's so easy to just put your RSS feed anywhere and it just populates wherever. So anywhere you can find podcasts, we should be. We're also, once we went to video, we were on YouTube as well. But for the most part, it was early on, it was a Yeti.
And how do you promote an episode? Like if an episode's coming out, how do you promote it? Anything in particular you guys do, or you just have do you have like, we always drop on Tuesdays at 5, or do you have like, how do you kind of get the word out when you're dropping a new episode?
The usual social media methods, whether it's TikTok or Twitter or, Facebook, Instagram, those kind of things. We'll use some of those. But otherwise, early on, it was always Friday. And for a while, it was like, all right, the first Friday of every month and the second Friday of it, or something like that. And then it became less important, because I found that it was nice for a while to have that consistency. And that was important for us to be like, all right, guys, we need to record because we've got, that coming up that we want to be on it, which was, I think, very important for us in the early days of it. But now that we've kind of established this thing, it's like, hey, it's okay, especially if we, somebody can't record or something's coming up, or hey, this new trailer just dropped. Let's talk about it, and then we can release that next week. We'll release 3 episodes this month. Who cares?
Right.
So that hasn't been as much of a...
What about Reacts, though? Was it a little bit different with Reacts?
I will say the season 3 of Invincible was the first time we did Reacts officially. Prior to that, occasionally we would do there's a new trailer. Let's just... We know it's coming out tomorrow. They've teased it's coming out tomorrow. While you're at work, just put your phone on you and take a video of yourself
and just
watching.
Do some short content. That was good enough.
Exactly. So the Reacts weren't anything that we've done until this season, and that was just get it out as soon as we can after the episode.
That was gonna say, that's the thing. We do a lot of Reacts here, and Reacts we'll so we're doing Daredevil right now. So we'll come in at 9:00 on Tuesday, record it, and our editor, one of the kids who's on the on the pod, he'll go home and edit it and drop it 7:00 in the morning the next day, and that's led to tremendous success for them because you get into that algorithm quicker because people watch it. And then people want to talk about it and they want to see what other people have to say about it. And that's really been for them has been a great model for their growth. And that's really helped them out.
And we have always been about the more long form conversation.
Right.
So the Reacts has always been we've seen that people want Reacts. We've seen that, and judging by this year, they did really well. But that to me is a vehicle to get people to listen to the conversations. Right. You know what I mean?
And I think that's an important thing. It's not necessarily about, you want people to be involved in that conversation. It's not just about getting to grow the stuff, the content, or the subscribers. It's also making sure you have conversations and that's sometimes where people kind of lose their way a little bit in my mind. So do you guys make a lot of short content or no?
When Wyatt joined the podcast a year and a half, 2 years ago, he came on and he was really good at that kind of stuff. So he's been doing more for us lately. Within the last year, it's been more short content. And a lot of that is, I'd say, even 50 to 75% are just clip outs, of the podcast. Right. And then, a little bit other than that, there's some original stuff too that we throw together. Just fun short videos or goofs that we'll make.
Well, because you'll do other stuff too. You've covered games and cards and stuff that have come out. If a product drops or something like that.
And we are covering it in full on the episodes too, but there have been times where we'll have ideas for short things and we actually have more planned.
Right.
Which again kind of goes back to the Reacts thing of it's fun to put out there because we know that that's where a lot of people are to get our name out there. It's almost it's almost a way of advertising, doing the short content.
Yeah,
stuff.
no, for sure.
Is to advertise for the other thing.
Yeah.
And I know,
and that's what I try to say. I think short content is people aren't really watching TV, so there's this. Short content in many ways is your commercial.
Exactly.
It's a teaser. It's what this week on whatever show, and it's almost drives you to it. Or at the very least, there's some people that just love short content, and that and I have started to make some short content just for fun, so I know how to do it because I've never been a short content guy, and I don't even really want to be on TikTok, but I know that I'll do better there.
I know.
But I've enjoyed learning that. For me, I want to keep trying to figure out new ways to be a better producer.
Yeah.
So it's fun for me to figure out, okay, let's say which app will help me do this and best practices and all those kinds of things. What do you think's been is there been a biggest challenge? What was the biggest challenge? Was there one?
Man, I can't think of much. I think early on it was the lulls when we didn't have much to talk about, and it was trying to get through. Like, all right, it's been a year where there really hasn't been any Invincible news.
Right.
So what are we going to talk about? And that other than that, it's just been mostly technical. It would be early on when we're like, hey, we want to film this game show. We want to do a trivia show. We want to play Guess Who with all Invincible characters instead of the normal characters in the Guess Who game. How do we film that? How do we, do we use our phones? How do we mic it? Like, what room do we use? Those were the challenges more than anything.
Does everybody have kind of specific responsibilities, or is there kind of an expectation that, like, I'm going to do this and you're going to do that? How does that workload get broken up?
Not so much. I do a lot of on the producing side as far as the editing and posting and that kind of stuff. Other than that, Wyatt handles a lot of the creating of the short content.
Right.
Bill and TJ do a lot of the funny videos and things that we might do, but that's otherwise we kind of just do it all together.
And you already talked about the fact you engage a lot with your followers.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, will you get emails? Is it just in the comment section?
It'll be comment section on YouTube or interactions on Twitter or mostly emails. Especially when a season is airing of the show, we get quite a bit of emails, and we have to go through and pull out ones that we want to read on show, which always feels bad, right? Like, we're so lucky to have people that would want to write in.
Right.
And it's like, we want to read all of these, to the point where this year we actually started doing the occasional live stream where we could be like, we're just going to hang out with the chat because this season's been a lot of fun. We want to interact with you because we record the breakdowns.
And that's what I try to get. I think one of the things I'm going to get to is that from your model is that you guys don't, it's not just, and here's my thing, it's not just a podcast. There's so many other types of things that you do.
Yeah.
And I try to explain to people when they come into the door, I'm like, well, it's not just podcasting, it's all content. You're content creators. Yeah. And sometimes it's a pod, sometimes it's React, but sometimes it's a blog, and sometimes it's just reading emails in a live stream, in a chat. It's just finding ways to engage. It's all content.
Yeah.
It's just all content.
But it's more about making and maintaining a community.
Right.
Like, what do we want to do as this group of people who have this shared passion? What would I want to see? I would want to see a trivia show. I would want to see that board game play.
You've gotten good ideas from some of your fans about stuff?
Yeah. Fans will tell us what they want to see more of. We want you guys to reread it from the beginning again.
I feel like it's really important, because if I'm a fan, nobody's like, obviously you guys are a fan.
Oh, yeah.
And when the writer recognized you guys, that was that moment where, even as if I'm just following a pod or an actor and I send them a message or I tweet something or whatever, and they respond, and and it hasn't been very often, it's like, wow, they took the time. And I think that's like you said, the community, like recognizing you have a community is really, really important, because they, I like it when we get some comments on some of these things where they're like, great job, guys. We like your positivity when, sometimes we're not positive on some of the content that we've had to watch, but when we are positive, and then the problem is sometimes we have watched and we react to some things on some of the pods that I've been part of, where you end up covering some, and we've actually stopped doing certain things because we just don't want to have to get into these fights.
Yeah. I don't know if suddenly something happened and all four of us didn't like Invincible anymore. If something happened, if the show for whatever reason got really bad and we didn't want to talk about it, I don't know if we would, because we don't need that doesn't need to exist out there.
I got a couple of little things. So one little thing that was just simple stuff, like, what kind of softwares do you use for the production?
Early on, when we first started, it was just a Yeti mic in a small room with the three of us sitting around that mic, and I would record the audio and edit it in Audacity, I believe it was back then. And then COVID happened, and we're like, all right, we're going to record from home. So we switched to Zoom, and I used something that would record off of Zoom. Right. And then I used Premiere Pro to edit that audio. And I eventually moved that into video, which was years later. We were audio only for a long time. And then within the last couple years, we all switched from using Zoom to StreamYard because
it's much better.
And much more reliable. It also gives us the ability to live stream, which we've been doing more of.
Right.
And just the options it has. Is
we've already changed softwares. We still use OBS for a lot of things, but we do StreamYard. I like just using StreamYard just in general. And then I have obviously in my studio, I tend to have you can see I have a lot of equipment. I'm still a button guy. I like pressing buttons, and
it's also
and for me, and my stuff gets used for so many different types of content too. Like, so this will be here today, but then it'll be over there for somewhere else. It's portable for a live event. And I just kind of like asking people, like, because everybody, I'll get a lot of questions like, well, what are you using and why are you using that? And I don't like them. Like, you should have the Shure or whatever. And I'm like, well, I have 9 mics, so I can't afford a $400 mic. If I can find better ways. And obviously lighting becomes an issue. And it, obviously in your case, it's like, you guys are all pretty much at home and
which is why it's changed things. We want to be doing more in person. Wyatt's in California.
Right.
Bill, TJ, and I are here in New York. But so for the most part, it's all going to still be on our computers, ring light type thing.
Yep.
Apart from the occasional in-person video that we get to make, which which has been great getting to meet you and film some stuff with you, because that takes the most amount of work.
Well, it was great when you guys came in for, was it your 100th episode? Is that what it was? 150th episode.
Yeah.
I really appreciated it because it's nice to have, most of the time people come in and I meet them for the first time. This is their first thing, where you guys had like really cool expectations of what you wanted. And I loved that day for me because it made me it made me a better producer because I had to meet your needs. And even not just sound wise and video wise, just where everything was. And it was a new set that we hadn't even quite finished yet. And I just had enjoyed that process. And that's for me, like why I enjoy doing this, because I don't have a lot of my own content. And this is why I started this podcast, because I really I participate in a lot of other people's content. And I have one I do with my son, and our origin was almost the same way. We were just always having these conversations since he was 5 years old, like, who'd win in a fight, the Hulk versus Superman, and then eventually we just, during COVID, we started recording them. And that's kind of when we got our start. And we don't produce as much as we would. And it's a lot of times just because we're all so busy now doing all this other content that they do. And he has they have a nice core of group that they work with, which is a lot of fun. They're able to bring in different people, almost like an ensemble piece at times. So do you have anybody else that you bring in sometimes, or has it pretty much been...
No, it's
besides the obviously Kirkland and folks like that.
Yeah, it's the four of us, the occasional guest. We've done things, and we hope to do more. We will bring in just community members, fans of Invincible. Other than that, we've had, I mentioned, we did a series where we were reading the book from the beginning with people who've never read it before.
Oh, that's really cool.
That was a series that we had done. But for the most part, it's just the four of us.
This is the thing that my last kind of thing I want to get into. And why I want to talk to podcasters, because one common thing that seems to come across to people is that the level of, I don't know, just the benefit. What benefits do you feel you've gotten out of doing this?
Really, it's just getting to hang out with our friends.
Yeah.
Like we just and build that community, not only with, all the Invincible fans and listeners out there, but with each other. We have been friends. I mean, Bill, TJ, and I have been friends for a long time. And so having like that friendship growing and creating those memories at conventions or, traveling and everything like that. And just even on the podcast, even doing 150 here is like an incredible experience. And it was so much fun. There was just a lot of laughs and we had a great time. But between that, I mean, if you want to get it even more specific, I mean, we love this property. We love Invincible. So getting to, be kind of out there and, check out new stuff first, or maybe get a look behind the curtain on some things has always been incredible. That's been a lot of fun. But me personally, I love, like similar to what you're saying, I like the act of producing. I like the act of creating these things. And that's been a lot of fun too.
For me, it's been a lot of, it's just being creative. I mean, I've always lucky as a teacher in my 31 years of teaching, most of it I got to be creative, and I was glad I get to do it. And so I was lucky that I had a career where I got to be creative. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the podcasters I talk to, a lot of them don't have that. A lot of them are just, they work in an office and or they answer phones all day, or they're in construction, and they like their jobs as much as anybody likes their jobs, but they have the opportunity to get together with their buddies, their friends, the two girls that they've been friends since they were 4 years old, and they see each other, but because they get together every Wednesday to tape, it's appointment for them.
Yeah.
Like even on a bad week, unless somebody's sick, I think they've only missed like 4 weeks. And I think out of 2 years almost now, they'll be 2 years in a few months. And they've only missed 4 or 5 times. And I think a couple times, one was a funeral, a couple times somebody was sick. One was, I think, a snowstorm or something like that, where we just didn't leave. And it's, again, they'll talk about quite often, like just there's almost like a wellness aspect of it, of just being able to get together and be creative with your friends, especially because you're not kids anymore.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know,
the
where
amount that we've grown since doing the podcast too, you know, like the kids that have grown up or getting married, like all the different stages of our life we can now look back on, because like I said, we've done 9 years. So
it's, any mistakes, anything like, why did we do that?
Forgetting to hit the record button a couple times. Early on, and we've touched on this, early on, because we were reviewing the comic book, we were like, we're reviewing something, so we have to be critical. We have to find something we don't like, talk about something we do like, and like, we didn't need to do that. You know what I mean? So maybe that, but you know, that was not even that big of a deal. Other than that, not really.
So you just finished the latest season, and I'm going to start watching it tonight. I know you're probably a little disappointed that I'm not up to date. But how did you rate the last season?
Oh my God, it was incredible.
Best season?
Probably, yeah. Probably of the 3 so far. Yeah, I think it was.
How many more seasons you'll think you'll get?
I think they'll get 8. I'm thinking around 8.
Oh, then you'll be podcasting for a while then.
Oh, yeah. We've got so much. They've teased that so much more is coming too. Like, it is not just...
Well, it's an expanding universe. Mm-hmm. And I forgot to bring up one thing, that you guys have been in a comic book.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Our friend Kyle Higgins is a comic book author, and he's included us into that comic book universe.
I picked up those comic books right before Christmas.
Nice.
And I looked through it, and I was dying. I'm like, I know a guy in a comic book.
Yeah.
I mean, even that's got to be like, we're in a comic book.
That was such a weird, like, meta, like, whole thing, because it's like, here we are podcasting for a while, and we met Kyle through the podcast because he was a fan, and he was, you know, getting into Invincible. And then he's doing this comic book, and he needs characters that are podcasters. And he's like, I'm just going to make it you guys. So we wrote the dialogue for it. And
that's great. I didn't realize that part of it.
Oh, yeah. We act like ourselves in it. We're reoccurring characters in that. And it's a massive Image comic. Like, it is a huge book.
Yeah, I mean, I'm only, I think, I'm up to episode 5.
Oh, okay.
I'm not far into it yet.
Yeah, okay, yeah. We pop back up a few times. It's pretty.
Oh, that's
fun.
cool.
Yeah, it's been a blast. Like, it's been.
Well,
so
that's
much
just
fun.
like, again, even that, like, I don't like, you know, to show your kids or your nephews or nieces or something someday. It'll be like, hey, look at this. This was when I was, you know,
That's kind of what the podcast has always been to me. Like, I grew up loving like the Lord of the Rings extended editions. Yeah. I like the bonus content, the bonus features. Like, we have created this whole backlog of shows and videos and you know, fun content that you can go back and enjoy.
Right.
You know,
any shout outs or anything you want to say to anybody? Or
I mean, just obviously to Bill White and TJ, the guys that we've been doing this with. I mean, we've been doing it for like 9 years, and we haven't killed each other. I mean, that's been pretty impressive. The amount that we've grown has been amazing. Those of us that have wives, our wives that have, you know, stuck with us, and it's been a lot of.
That's important.
It is.
That's important to have a supportive structure.
It really is.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, it helps that we put all that before the podcast, and we don't record every week, and you know, we make it work. And then obviously just all the community out there, like I said before, like we went into this because we wanted to build and support a community of fans that love this thing. And they have been so welcoming and so awesome, and they've accepted the fact that like we are just fans of this and we want to enjoy it. And so, you know, people that aren't into it don't stick around, and people that, you know, get what we're doing have been around for a while, and it's been a blast.
That's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. I was really looking forward to interviewing you, because again, we don't know each other real well. And again, you guys have been doing this for so long now, really. Like, you know, you guys have been doing this, and you've accomplished an awful lot with it. And I think you guys have the success that you want to have. Like and I try to get people to understand, like, you know, if you're doing a podcast and people will say, well, how successful are they? I'm like, I don't know. Like, for some people, 5 listeners would be a success, and some people think they should have 1 million or whatever. I go, it's all subjective to what your goals are. Exactly. And as long as you go in with goals that are you got to be realistic. Like no one's doing this overnight.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Yeah.
and the ones that do go overnight, they are not
can't
around
count
very
on that
long.
either.
They're not going to be around very long.
Exactly.
Because they got lucky.
Yep. Yeah.
And they probably don't have enough of the common sense of how to keep it going. You know.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the time. I appreciate TJ coming in to produce for me. This was a lot of fun. So again, thank you for tuning in. The goal here is to my business here was I want to work with creators. Like I really want to find a way to be a supportive partner to them, whatever expertise I might have. So if you're interested in doing a podcast or any type of content, please reach out to us through our website. Come see it. I love to show off the building. I'm pretty proud of what we're trying to build here in Niagara Falls. We have all kinds of photographers and creators using the building. And it's just, for me, it's just a fun creative space. It's just kind of a great second act for me after my teaching career. I appreciate everybody that's been willing to be a guest and sit on the couches with me for a little bit and tell me about their journey as podcasters. And so thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, man.